Throughout the past 5 or 6 years of my print-on-demand journey, I've learned a bunch of lessons that somewhat go beyond the subject of print-on-demand. They go beyond a t-shirt design tutorial or the newest AI tool or a niche research session. They kind of go a little bit further in the sense of what should you do to secure your income, for example. If you've been doing POD for a while and you're now starting to get sales, you're considering quitting your job, or maybe you have already done that. A lot of lessons that essentially have come up throughout my journey, which I think can help a lot of you get some perspective or potentially get some tips of what to do in your current situation if you're maybe not in the beginner stages anymore. If you're completely new to POD, some of the things we're going to talk about might not be relevant to you, but I still think you can take a lot of general lessons away for life in this video. So the first thing I wanted to discuss with you is what I personally call the lifestyle gap. And this is an idea that's been kind of floating around in my mind for a long time now. I've been struggling to kind of explain it in a sensible way, even to myself. So I'm going to do my best in this video. But I think this lifestyle gap can be very useful to anyone at any stage of your journey, any stage of income. It can be very useful for you to understand this, but it definitely becomes increasingly more important the further along your journey you get and the more your income grows, at least in my opinion. So what is the lifestyle gap? Everyone has a certain amount of income available to them, and everyone has a certain level of lifestyle that they're paying for, and a lot of your income is in most cases going to be taken up by those lifestyle expenses. This could be things like your rent payment, your payments for your car, clothing that you buy on a regular basis. It could be the quality of your diet that you're paying for. You're going food shopping on a regular basis. It could be expenses like holidays that you're going on, vacations, right? So everyone has a certain level of lifestyle, and that's going to, on a regular basis, take up quite a large chunk of your income. From my experience, no matter what level of income you're at, I personally get a lot of kind of a sense of freedom and comfort, stress relief and joy from the gap between my lifestyle and the overall income. This gap is kind of your excess disposable income in a sense that you can put aside and save. The danger is if you suddenly have a bit more income than your current lifestyle expenses, you might think, oh great, now I've got this extra income every month. Why not upgrade my lifestyle? Why not get a bigger car or a faster car? Why not move into a bigger house? Or why not start buying Gucci instead of Adidas? You know, there's different things that people might like, or maybe it's always getting the newest phones. There's different certain upgrades that you can make to your lifestyle as your income goes up, which then essentially has the effect of, yes, your income is going up, but the gap is never changing. Maybe your lifestyle is always taking up 95% of your income, and you never really have much breathing room, much freedom to save or to have something for an emergency or to invest a little bit of money into your health, right? So I think it is important to always try and, when you're kind of getting tempted to upgrade your lifestyle, think about, is it maybe more valuable to leave a bit of a gap there? Give myself a bit of breathing room, a bit of stress relief, a bit of comfort, hold back on upgrading my car, hold back on moving on into a newer house, because in the worst case scenario, you keep upgrading your lifestyle as your income goes up. Well, what if your income suddenly goes down? Now you have a lifestyle that's more expensive than your current income. And that's when things can go terribly wrong, and you can find yourself suddenly in a lot of debt if you don't downgrade your lifestyle, which I think that is a lot harder for people than it is to upgrade your lifestyle. And this is really, I think, where people struggle is upgrading your lifestyle feels great, and that's an easy thing to do. There's so many options to do that. But you get used to that new lifestyle, and then suddenly if you get forced to kind of downgrade again, you might still be at, having a nice car, having a nice house, that most people would consider a really nice lifestyle. But because you've become used to the higher level and now you've dropped, you suddenly see this as like a miserable life. And you're at the opposite stage of having a sense of freedom, a sense of comfort, joy, and stress relief, when if you just held back and you gave yourself that breathing room to save money and to have a gap between your lifestyle and your income, I think, yeah, whilst you're going to miss out on some things for sure, I think patience can really give you a better longevity in terms of your mental health right here, and also lower some of the risks of what if your income changes? What if you suddenly can't afford the more expensive car, but you're locked into a contract? All of these kind of things. So I hope that makes sense. It's a difficult thing for me to explain. I don't know why, but it's something that I've been thinking about a lot. And I hope that if you ever come to this stage, or you've been in this position before, that I can help you kind of steer in the right direction. And I know that not everyone has the privilege of kind of deciding, do I want to downgrade my lifestyle? Or you can't necessarily have a gap between your lifestyle and your income in every case. But if there is a chance, if you started to make a bit more income with POD, don't instantly fill out that gap. I think that's going to build a habit that can be very, very dangerous and risky in the future. The second thing on my list is something that's very close to my heart. It's something that I've been personally very engaged with and enthusiastic about, especially over the past 1 to 2 years. Before I tell you what it is, have you ever asked yourself any of these following questions in relation to your print-on-demand business? I wonder how often I should upload new products. I wonder if the issue is my design or my keywords. I wonder how long it took other sellers to get their first sale or to reach their first $1,000 a month. How do other sellers create so many high quality designs? I feel really stuck, but I'm not sure what I should do next. Well, the good news is everyone asks these questions. So if the answer for you was yes, if you've asked some of them yourself before, it's pretty much the same for everyone. You might feel very, very isolated and alone in this journey because this is a virtual business. It's all happening online. Rarely people have like a co-working space, or you find yourself in a cafe where everyone's doing print on demand. It is a very lonely kind of virtual business, but the thing is, we're all connected by the same goals for the most part, which is financial freedom or quitting your 9 to 5. And we also experience the same struggles. And some of those struggles are in the questions that I've just written out to you, which are thanks to Adam Young's newsletter, where I actually got them from. I thought they were a really cool idea. And I think what all of these questions have in common is they're not very easy to answer because they're missing a lot of context or examples, which you kind of need to give an appropriate answer to the person who's asking themselves that question. And not every single question can be answered in a simple YouTube comment or in a YouTube video even, because the format just doesn't really allow it. However, some of these questions can be more effectively answered through community. Finding like-minded people who are on the same journey as well, that you can relate to, make friends with eventually, and then get more appropriate feedback and get some of these more concrete questions answered or discussed at least, because there's not always a very simple black and white yes or no answer to things. The point I'm trying to make here is one of my favorite things from this entire journey, and one of the things that's helped me grow the most is community, is exchanging ideas with other sellers that are on the same journey, exchanging ideas with people in the free Discord server and just hearing their thoughts about what's been going on Amazon Merch recently, what you should do with your ads, what things might be changing in the print-on-demand world. This is not just print-on-demand specific, it works for everything. I've started the Print-on-Demand Council to connect with more YouTubers. Same goes for the Print-on-Demand Wisdom podcast. That is all a way to connect with more people and network, build friendships, relationships, because we can all grow a lot faster and a lot stronger together as a whole. as a community, as a group, if we're sharing what's helped each other out and what hasn't helped each other out, and then just picking out all of the best bits from everyone that we're speaking to. And you can do this as well. So if you felt very isolated and you've kind of been alone on this journey, start engaging in some way. There's many places out there. Maybe you prefer Facebook. There's a bunch of Facebook groups about print on demand. Maybe you like Instagram. There's people on Instagram posting, sharing their sales. Maybe ask them a question. There is my free Discord community, right? Where people have definitely formed connections and bonds with each other. And will also, some of those people will also be exchanging DMs and having ongoing conversations that are a little bit more private, where you might be able to ask some of these questions more effectively without having to share them with thousands of people at once. So I think whilst this is not a quick fix to anyone's, current struggle in the business, it's definitely a long-term thing of, with the community, you're going to accelerate your rate of growth and learning in any endeavor, not just print on demand. This one is quite unique and quite important, or even more so important, I think, to have a community for, because it is so virtual, because it can be so isolating, right? So that's the second point. Try and surround yourself with like-minded people. Try and make friends, build relationships, because together you can grow stronger a lot quicker. Point number 3 I want to mention is diversifying your income. This is definitely something every print-on-demand seller should consider, or at least keep at the back of your mind, because sooner or later it's going to be the smart decision, is diversifying your income. If you're starting out, yes, focus in on one platform, like go all in to try and grow your first income stream in this print-on-demand world. But you'll come to a certain point where it actually makes sense to try and diversify a little bit, because these income streams, they can be inconsistent. There are no guarantees with them. There are things that are out of your control. And this is not just a print-on-demand specific problem. It happens in all sorts of businesses, right? Things can change overnight, things that you wouldn't expect, and then your income stream might suddenly change in an unpredicted fashion. And to give you an example of this, I used to make a lot of sales on TeePublic on a regular basis. I was getting $800, $900, $1,000 a month, which for TeePublic, those are pretty huge numbers. And nowadays, I'm struggling to make $100 a month on that platform. Just things changed over the years, and it's not what it used to be. And at the same time, my Amazon merch sales have gone up, thankfully. But if I didn't have multiple income streams, something like the TeePublic sales dropping drastically would stress me out heavily and make a big difference to my bottom line. Think of ways you can diversify, and this is something you can do within the print-on-demand world by obviously uploading your designs to multiple marketplaces, but also how can you add other income streams that are potentially through a tool, through a service that you're offering to people, through a YouTube channel. There's multiple avenues that you've got that you can go down to further diversify your income and kind of stabilize or lower the risk of your business over the long term. I definitely think there's a lot of evidence that speaks for the fact that if you focus on one thing only, you can make a lot more progress more quickly. Right, that's definitely true, but you're also putting all of your eggs in one basket. And I personally feel a lot better if my income is diversified, if I have multiple income streams that will all fluctuate over time, depending on the month, depending on the week. They are going to go up and down, but generally they are going to level out if you zoom out and look at it at a longer time horizon. So that's definitely something important that I think everyone should consider. It's going to be better for your sanity. You don't have to spend all of your time just trying to diversify. I don't think that's a good idea either. And that actually plays into my next point that I want to discuss. But definitely do consider this because you never know what's going to happen in the future, what changes might be awaiting you. Talking point number 4 is kind of almost the opposite of what I just told you. So this might sound a little bit confusing, but I will try and make it make sense. But basically what I've found to be extremely important throughout my journey, and I've also heard the exact same story from almost everyone else I've spoke to, is try and fight or avoid shiny object syndrome as much as possible. So basically, don't try and jump onto a new business idea every single week, and focus in on what you're good at and what's already working and keep on improving that. Now, I know that sounds like the complete opposite advice of what I just told you, because if you're trying to diversify your income, you're going to have to kind of try out different avenues of business and trying to build new income streams. But I think what's important here is you want to try and pick income streams that complement one another. So if you already have designs that are selling on Etsy, upload them to Amazon. If you already have designs that are selling on Amazon, upload them to Etsy, right? That is not a lot of extra work, and it's fairly seamless and self-explanatory in many ways. And the business models are extremely close to one another. It's just different marketplaces, whereas it's not really a massive shiny object. It kind of almost makes sense. It connects very well. The opposite of that would be is you're getting a lot of sales on Etsy, and you hear about the Amazon Influencer Program, and then you drop your Etsy shop and completely ignore it for 3 months to try and start your new side hustle of the Amazon Influencer Program, which is very different to a print-on-demand business. And that's just one quick example that came to mind. But essentially, you want to still focus most of your energy on your main thing, whilst trying to build income streams that are more easy to build off of that primary thing. And kind of YouTube is in that same realm, where you're teaching what you're doing anyway on a day-to-day basis. Or I'm teaching what I'm doing using AI tools, designing t-shirts, how to upload to Amazon. These are things I'm doing anyway. I'm just kind of repurposing that thing that I'm doing in another format to potentially create other income streams. And that's what I think is important here. Shiny object syndrome is something that most of us, like business-minded people, entrepreneurial people, struggle with, because we see a new idea, we see that there's potential, and we feel confident that we can succeed if we have succeeded to some extent somewhere else, and we get distracted. We get distracted from the main thing that's actually making us a lot of money, and we lose out a lot of progress there in an area where we might have a lot more leverage, because we already have built a lot of expertise. But the thing is, in most cases, that thing that we've been doing for so many years and that's working, it's kind of become a little bit stale, and the dopamine hits aren't quite as high anymore as they used to be at the beginning. So we jump into this new thing, which is all exciting, and then you make your first dollar or your first $10, and it's like, wow, there's potential here. And that feels a lot more exciting than adding like another few $100s, another few $1,000s onto your existing business. At least that's how it's felt for me. And that's also what I've heard from a lot of other people, right? The novelty of the new shiny object that you've found is very, very tempting in a lot of cases. But yeah, it can definitely derail you, and over the long term, not really be beneficial in many cases. Like, sure, some of those shiny objects, they might work out, but in a lot of cases, it's just going to be a distraction and not really help you. So I hope that makes sense. I hope the points are not too contradicting. I think the right answer is definitely somewhere in the middle between them, right? You shouldn't just do one thing and put all of your eggs in one basket, but you also shouldn't just jump in between 50,000 different business models from one week to the next. So the right answer is somewhere in the middle. Find your balance there. I hope that made sense, and I hope you can avoid shiny object syndrome. And the fifth thing I wanted to make you aware of and quickly touch on is something that I wish I found out a lot earlier. That's the main reason I'm telling you about it. It's a little bit further beyond print-on-demand for sure, and some people are probably not going to be interested in it, but it's fine. And just a quick heads up, none of this is financial advice. Like, nothing I'm going to say now is financial advice, because I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just a print-on-demand YouTuber sharing some lessons and things that I've learned and implemented in my life, things that I'm very happy with, but that I wish I started sooner. So the thing I'm talking about is protect yourself against inflation. And what do I mean by this? If you do have some savings sitting around, if you're further along your journey, you're starting to make a little bit of money from your print-on-demand and you're thinking about saving it, one of the worst things you can do with those savings is just leave them sitting in your bank account like your normal current account, because chances are there's going to be inflation and that money is going to lose value as time goes on. So the money is kind of shrinking whilst it's just sitting in your bank account, which you obviously don't want. Ideally, you want to protect yourself against that. And what I do, again, there's multiple ways to do this. What I do is something that is fairly low on risk. It's also lower in terms of potential with like making money, but at least it's still a protection against that inflation. And it's investing into what's called index funds. And index funds are essentially your investment being spread across hundreds, if not thousands, of companies. It could be in one certain country or globally even, and they're spread across all these top performing companies. It's kind of a more stable way to invest where you're not going to have massive returns, but you're also less likely going to have massive losses. I know if you've never heard of investment or if you've never really looked into it, this probably already is turning you off. I was the same when I first heard about it. It's kind of this thing where you assume, for good reason, if you invest money, it's at risk and you could lose it all. That's definitely what it seems like. And from the outside looking in, it does seem a lot scarier than it really is. Like, I don't consider myself an expert. I also don't spend much time on actually looking at my investments or anything. The index fund thing is something that's very hands-off. You can kind of do regular payments into like an investment savings account and kind of set it and forget it. That's how I like it. I don't want to be involved in like daily checking what are the stocks looking like, where do I need to trade. I don't want to be an active investor. I want to be kind of passive without me having to worry about it. Yes, it's not going to make crazy returns, at least in the short term, but it's also very, very low risk that it's actually going to lose a lot of value, and it's most likely not going to lose as much value as it does in the bank account. Because that's the thing, there's usually a lot more risk to having your money in the bank account, because there it is guaranteed to lose value. You're not going to gain value by having it in your bank account, and by having it invested in something, it's going to go up and down in value, but at least it is also going up. And over time, these index funds, from what I know, at least some of the more reputable ones, for example, S&P 500 or some of the global ones, like over time, over decades of history of these index funds, they do always average out to making multiple percentages of interest every single year in returns. They do protect you against inflation. It's just as simple as that. I definitely wouldn't invest like all of my savings into it. It's something that you want to do with money that you don't necessarily need access to right now, or that you might want to use for an emergency fund, because in the short term, these index funds, they can drop in value. It's over the long term that they typically gain, and you're going to make interest back, and that interest can also compound with time. That's kind of their strength, is time. If you have a lot of time on your side, you can invest money or put it away for multiple years or even multiple decades. You will eventually have interest that is gaining interest or generating interest, and then the interest of the interest is also generating interest, and it can kind of compound. There's a website called Compound Interest Calculator, which is very interesting, because you can enter something as simple as like $200 a month if you invested that at a 5% return, which is fairly achievable with these investment index funds, like a 5% annual return. And then watching that grow over 10, 20, 30, 40 years, and the exponential like compounding growth of those kinds of investments, even with smaller monthly contributions, can be very interesting to look at. And again, if you've never heard of this, it probably all sounds really confusing, and you're like, there's too much risk to this, I don't understand it. That's exactly how I was. I'm not saying you should do this or you have to do this. I'm just saying, if you've never heard of it, please just do a bit of research. Like, I wish I had done the research earlier and gotten over those initial fears, because it is something that I feel is very important and is sadly not talked about enough. I wish even we were a bit more informed about these kind of things in school, at least about the inflation side of things. But nevertheless, it's something that I find quite important, something that I usually would recommend to friends if they have some savings. So I consider you my friends, and I hope that helps some of you out. But don't worry if that's something that you're totally against. I'm not saying you should do this or you definitely have to look into it. And there we have it. Those are some lessons that go a little bit beyond print on demand that I've been really meaning to share with you. Let me know in the comments down below what you think about these lessons, if you've got any input or any additional things that you want to add. If you want to watch the next video, you don't want to comment, you just want to carry on with the content, then click right here for the next video about my top 5 favorite underrated print on demand YouTubers.